All right, good evening and welcome back to our channel Princess Sits. Today remains the 10th of September 2025, and I want to dwell so seriously on the current trending matter, and that has to do with the lien. Of late, the information trending right now is that all stakeholders in charge of disbursing the grants to the masses have been completely disbursed to us at last week. This was actually said by Chief Admin and the Bright, and further to say that the money had entered into various bank accounts but placed on lien, and that is unauthorized to be accessed by the disbursement authorities. And as it stands, that it is expected that the authorities will lift the lien today, which is Wednesday, for the pioneer stakeholders to commence disbursements to their beneficiaries. And Ngozi Israel was accused of crudely saying that no stakeholders have received the grant, that she should have explained the situation to the grant community, as the account is only on lien, which is unauthorized access. Then we have today also that a particular comrade came out and talked about lien in another perspective, but I don't want to go to that perspective really. I just want to limit it within the confine of money, not project, but money that is meant within the confine even of this grant. I want to really streamline it to the borders of this grant especially, and our expectations within this ambit, so that we will not flog the matters too much and finally go astray from the confine of our expectation within the grant ecosystem, because that's exactly what's going to give us the wisdom and the understanding that we need. Now, having said that, I'm going to give us the real meaning of what a lien is, what a lien and some other terms that are also connected or interconnected with a lien from the banking sector or from that angle, especially when it has to do with funds that is expected to be released. So a lien, when it is placed on a bank account, is actually an official restriction that prevents the account holder from freely using or being able to withdraw some or all of the money that is intended for a party. And while a third party's legal or administrative interest is being protected or investigated. Now, you can also say that a lien, in the other hand, is a legal right or claim over funds that are usually created to secure a debt or satisfy a court or agency order. It normally requires a formal instruction, some court order and government notice or creditor notice before it can be taken away. Now, we also have the term like a freeze or a hold or a restriction. And these are bank action that temporarily prevent access while it investigates or awaits instructions. Not always a legal lien in that perspective, but often an administrative one. Then we have what is called a garnishment or a levy, which is a court or tax authority that forces the bank to hand funds to a creditor or tax agency. And this is a specific kind of lien or enforcement. And finally, we have the block or the suspicion alert, which actually refers to a short-term internal bank control to verify a transaction, like a KYC, not always a lien, but has the same practical effect, and you cannot also move on in that perspective. Now, knowing which of these applies is critical, because the steps to remove them also differs. Now, I will be talking about precisely eight eight uh 8 point or 8 reasons why a lien or a hold is placed on an account, the detailed reasons why, and what is needed for it to be removed. But listen carefully. The point number 6 and 7 is very critical to the grant ecosystem and what pertains to us. But before then, I will have to unravel some of these reasons also why a lien is placed on an account, or either lien or hold is placed on an account, restricting that fund from going out. The first one is when you have a court order or judgment where a creditor sues and gets a court judgment. The court can order the bank to freeze funds to satisfy the judgment pending the case, and what the court would ask for is a certified copy of the court order and contact details of the claimant. Then we also have a tax authority claim. Why some liens are placed or holds are placed, it's because of some claims of tax authority, where tax agencies, whether domestic or foreign, can place liens to recover unpaid taxes. And then what they will ask for is the notice from the tax office and also instructions to the bank. Then we also have the case of anti-money laundering or KYC concerns, where large or unusual incoming payments can trigger compliance holds while the bank verifies identity, the sources of funds, or the sender or recipient links, and what to provide to lift that lien or that particular hold is an ID, the purpose document, the source of funds, the proof, then the grant agreement and transfer references and all that. Then we have the fraud, the cases of fraud or criminal investigations. It's also another reason why lien or hold is placed on an account. So if funds are suspected to be linked to fraudulent activities or crime or a scam, banks may hold funds while the law enforcement investigates, and what they were required to lift that lien or hold is an investigation reference and the investigative agency's contact. Now, we also have the cases of third-party creditor claim, where a private creditor claims the funds, for example, an unpaid loan that is secured by the account. Now, the creditor asks the bank to enforce the claim, and what they would ask for before they can lift that claim or the hold is the creditor's claim documents and any court papers. Now, we also have the bank internal risk control or policy. Now, here in this case, the banks may place some precautionary holds for compliance operational reasons. For instance, now this applies to why we are here. The 6th point and the 7th point could really mean a lot to the grant ecosystem and the fund we are talking about. So listen carefully. Now, when we have bank internal risk control or policy, where the bank can place some precautionary holds for compliance or operational reasons, in the sense that when we have some high volume transfers or you have some name mismatches between the beneficiaries and the account. Now, these are administrative holds and not legal liens. And what is required to lift the lien is the correct account name, the proof of identity, and the grant award letter that can, unlift this lien. Then we have the case of the donor or the disbursing authority instructions. And this precisely is a more likely reasons if we lift away from number 6, which is the bank internal risk control or policy. The next that could actually attract a lien on this account is the donor or the disbursing authority instructions. Now, in this case, sometimes the donor or the disbursement authority instructs the intermediary banks or the field offices to hold funds pending the verification of beneficiaries or conditions. And this is common in some staged disbursements. And before that lien can take off or can be lifted, there has to be the provision of a written instruction from the donor stating the conditions for the release. And that is that about that. Then we have the case of bank error or system maintenance, where we have technical issues which can cause some temporary restrictions on a fund. And usually it is resolved quickly, but sometimes it can be disruptive. What they will ask for before they can lift the lien or the hold is an incident reference and expected resolution time frame. Now, how all of this applies to the grant disbursement, I think it's so necessary for us to have an understanding of how the lien or the hold applies to the disbursement process that everyone is in expectation of. Now, firstly, the grant typically travel from one place to another, sometimes through multiple hands. From the donor, beg your pardon, I'm going to be with you shortly and in a moment. All right, thank you very much, and we're back on course, still where we left off, and precisely how this actually applies to a grant disbursement. Funds or grant has a way it travels from the donor down to the disbursing authority, then down to the intermediary banks, then it gets to the beneficiary's bank. So a hold or a lien can be inserted at any link within this organ. The essence is just to monitor the flow of the funds and to prevent some discrepancies that could happen in between while the fund travels. Then we also have the common grant specific triggers, which has to do with the missing beneficiary verification, sometimes the ID, the BVN, the tax ID, or the mismatch between the name on the grant file and the bank account name, the donor suspicion about fraudulent applications or activities going on, or a policy requirement sometimes to confirm the compliance with grant conditions before the final release to the recipient that is intended to use this particular fund. Then thirdly, if a disbursement authority has placed a lien, it often means that the authority or the bank is protecting funds until the beneficiaries meet verification steps or until a dispute is resolved. Now, we are delving into all of this so that you can understand the position of the management of the pioneer or the stakeholders or all expectant beneficiaries who are out there in expectation of the fund to be released. And while a wing says that the fund have not been received by the stakeholders, another wing says they have received it, but a lien is placed on it. So what paraphernalia surrounds all of these agitations, where expectant beneficiaries are anticipative of the fact that the fund ought to have dropped. And the timeline now, which would definitely lead me into before then, some of the practical effects before I talk about the timeline where the lien sometimes subsists, or how long it stays, or how fast it is being lifted. We also had to understand that there are some practical effects of the lien towards the beneficiaries. The fact remains that there would be no withdrawal within this period. No withdrawal can be done, no transfer or of the affected amount can be effected. Then the account balance can show or may show restricted or pending or lien under the account. You would see there where the payment, if they try to enforce it, it will bounce, or a kind of scheduled debit will fail, on this. So that's just how what happens on the effect of the beneficiaries, or how it's going to show on the beneficiary. So the best is for it to be lifted before it can even be transferred in the first place. Now the timeline or the time frame where this could be lifted, in other words, the realistic expectations. Now, when we talk about if it has to do with administrative holds or the KYC, it is often resolved within 24 to 72 hours. That's within 2 to 3 days if the documents that is expected to lift this particular lien is supplied. But if it is not really supplied and it is slow, sometimes it can even stretch to 7 to 14 days or for some complex checks. So that is one timeline. Then if it is a court order or a tax liens, if it's a court order placed lien, or if it's a tax liens that has to do with tax or that has to do with investigations, this sometimes goes into weeks or even months depending on the legal process and representation. But let's streamline it right now to what has to do with the fund that is coming to the beneficiaries within the grant ecosystem. Now we have the timeline for the donor imposed conditional holds. Now listen to this. This has to do with the completion of the donor's condition. If it was a donor imposed lien on an account, that is to say that that account has to wait for the donor's directive before it can be lifted. Time varies, yes, but how fast the beneficiary and the bank act would determine how soon or later the lien can be taken away. If you follow us up till this time, you'll understand. If it's a donor imposed lien, you know why it is being imposed and the reasons and the essence for it to be lifted. So this ranges to help the planning and to help everything to be forestalled. So I don't want, beg your pardon, I don't want this submission to be too long. It's already getting too long, but there are other things that are enshrined in all of this that needed to be talked about. But on a final summation, I think the basics have been supplied as it has to apply to the grant ecosystem and the disbursement of the funds, whether Pioneer or the expected grant fund that is supposed to drop. So having said that, if beneficiaries or the management, let me say the management, follow the predefined order, and the donor, if it's a donor restricted lien or if it's a bank restricted lien, then all of these things that are supposed to open up the channels for disbursement, once they are met, why not? Like Chief Admin Andrew Bright was saying that today the lien is supposed to have been lifted. That is to say that if it was actually supplied maybe 3 days or 72 hours ago, then every details, or if it is true, now let's actually bring it to fore here. If it is true that this was a situation of lien, as against what we did not hear from Madam Ngozi Israel, she didn't talk anything about lien, but Andy Bright claims that it's a lien issue, and Madam Ngozi is not straightforward with information. So, and if it is true that it's a donor imposed lien, then if all the conditions are met, definitely it shouldn't take time before it is lifted. And based on what he said it's supposed to be lifted today if it is on the condition of a lien issue. So I think with all of this, we will have to settle the case on lien matters, and going forward, we'll be able to ascertain the real situation of things and where we are right now and where we are headed. So for all the Pioneer subscribers, just put yourself together and know that the fund is meant to change the economy, to change the community, to change the lifestyles of not just you, but the project. It's a project-funded initiative, and so responsibly so. So don't take it as personal. It has to do the work or the function it was meant to do. All right, so I hope you catch some or you caught some understanding and revelations towards this course. In case this resonates a little bit deep with you, then share this to very many other persons so that other persons too can catch the gist behind the current situation within the grand ecosystem, and then let it ripple effect, and every individual knows where we are at and where we are headed. Thank you very much. This is Princess. In case you're new and you haven't possibly understood what we do here, we deal with grant, we deal with other stuff that could earn you financial stability. And anytime we drop an update, it's meant to either teach you something, give you wisdom, instruct you, guide you, and also be able to set you up for that which you need to spice your life for the next phase of destiny. And in case you find comfort here, as we do hear from a lot of us, who gives us encouragement and a lifeblood to better update, then stick to this platform for better updates. And would always, as we promise, when we have one, you have one. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very good night rest. Until we come your way again, don't go anywhere. Have a nice night rest. Bye for now.